Hello and welcome to the Jackcast, your Swansea City podcast. I'm Matt Barocco, and this week I'm joined just by Stephen Carroll. Good evening, Steve.
Evening.
Right, we've got 4 games to catch up on. Try my best to keep upbeat and optimistic and not let this become a doom and gloom episode. But fair to say there's been a worrying run of form recently, Steve. Before we get into the games, really speaking, haven't really done a great deal. Well, we haven't done a great deal this year at all, but in terms of when we're looking back to around about late October, would you say? Or would it been early October since the last real run of form? It's not been a fantastic run, is it?
No, it's not. Obviously, after the international break in October, we had 4 wins in 5, didn't we? And that took us up as far as Bournemouth, which was early November.
Mm-hmm.
And we started quite well there, didn't we? We could have scored early on and then conceded against a run of play, and obviously we were well beaten in the end. But
that game, I recall in the build-up to that game, us doing a podcast saying that will really make a statement that we're promotion contenders if we get a result up there. It really does seem that we jinxed the whole season there.
Yeah, I think we were all sort of speculating, weren't we, that if we could go there and do well, maybe we were a playoff team. I don't think we were thinking top 2, certainly, were we? But it's not gone great since. I think it's 2 wins in 12, something like that. So yeah. It's not been brilliant. I mean, we definitely could have picked up more points, couldn't we? I mean, there were some games that I suppose could have gone either way. The games really that we've shot ourselves in the foot with, aren't they? I think that's the frustrating thing, where we've gifted some bad goals and we haven't been able to recover really. So I think that's the annoying thing, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think it's a recurring theme. Unfortunately, it's not something that we particularly look like we're learning from anytime soon. In fact, the games, as we look to address them, the first one we got going back to the 22nd of January is the only win that we get to discuss. So we'll revel in it. It was a home result against Preston, a 1-0 win there. Ryan Manning with a goal 10 minutes into the second half. Steve. I had to ask you to remind me of the performance of this one because, and you forgave me saying it was a largely forgettable affair, particularly the first half.
Yeah, the first half was very dull. I mean, I remember feeling quite bored and thinking, well, what's coming here? But, that one moment from Ryan Manning is the standout moment, really, wasn't it? It was a cracking goal and worthy of winning any game, really. And, I think we needed that, didn't we? Because, we haven't been winning many games recently. I think we needed that win just to sort of keep us ticking over. A clean sheet was nice as well, but I don't think anyone's gonna want to watch that back on DVD if I'm honest with you. But yeah, we had the win and it was needed, and we just got to be happy with it, haven't we?
Because I think, well, the last podcast you'd have done, of course you did it without me because it was unavailable, would have been addressing the Huddersfield game, and that second half of that game. In particular, give us that glimmer of hope, didn't it? It made you think, right, you know what? We know what the standard is now. We know where the bar has to be set. Because that second half of Huddersfield, we could have got 2 or 3. We certainly were all over them. They barely got out of their half. And I apologise for addressing something which, of course, you've already talked about. But that game, I thought we'd set a bar. And so to come down, of course, the 3 points are hugely, we were grateful for them and gratefully received after the Preston game. But there was almost a level that we'd set in the Huddersfield game that we kind of thought, well, those are the sorts of, that's our target now, isn't it? We've got to try and hit that sort of intensity and that sort of work rate to really push teams back on the back foot. And to be honest with you, since then, we haven't done it, have we?
No, we haven't. I mean, it has been a bit frustrating because I think a lot of us expected really a bit of a slow start once we got back to playing after what was a long break, really. So when we came on strong at Huddersfield, it was quite encouraging because you're thinking, well, okay, this is, you weren't really expecting it, and it bode well really for the next few games. But I don't think we have sort of kicked on massively from there. I mean, there's been some of the games have been okay, but then I'm sure we'll talk about Hull. That was particularly bad, I would say, especially in the first half. But yeah, it's not. I suppose we're just an unpredictable, inconsistent team, aren't we? That's probably the best way of describing it. You don't really know what you're going to get from us. Because I still think there is the makings of a good team here. There's certainly some good players here, but we're not showing it a great deal at the moment. But at the same time, we could start to show it when we sort of don't expect it. So I think the main thing to take from it is I wouldn't put the Swans on any sort of accumulator at the moment, because you really don't know what you're going to get from us.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I feel like my personal opinion is, whilst we're unpredictable, we do tend to blow cold at the moment a lot more than we're blowing hot. I think the standouts are the odd performance, like I say, the Huddersfield second half and stuff. But by and large, it's not greatly encouraging. There's not a massive amount of chance creation or exciting play. And if I see any such comparisons to, like I was talk about the Graham Potter season, for example, I don't think it quite marries up at this stage, because I recall in that season us snatching defeat from the jaws of victory so often, where we completely outplayed teams, peppered their goal, created so many chances, and somehow got caught by a sucker punch or an awful referee indecision. Time and time again, it seemed to be on a weekly basis. We thought the gods were against us. We had no luck at all. I don't quite feel that way so much, particularly, like you say, since that run of form in October. It has felt a lot like we haven't helped ourselves. Is that a fair comment? We don't really seem to be creating those chances or moving or stretching teams enough to warrant that sort of claim that we can pull 65-70% possession at the bag every week. But are we really pushing teams to the point where you think, do you know what, they're hanging on here? Because I don't think so in a lot of cases.
No, I think that's a fair reflection, really. I mean, we are having a lot of the ball. I mean, but are we asking a lot of questions? Probably not. I mean, Huddersfield is a good example. I thought we were camped in their half, really, but there weren't a great deal of chances. I think seems to be a big problem. Maybe we're not picking the right option, or nobody can see a through ball, or sometimes there's a few that are waiting maybe for the perfect chance to have a goal. It's, we're not always picking the right options in the final third, and I think that's sort of hurting us. And I mean, as you say, under Potter, it did feel like we were unlucky a lot, and a few decisions would go against us and stuff like that. But we're not really getting ourselves in enough positions where, you're going to sometimes get incidents where you might get a foul in the box or something like that at the moment. We were having them earlier in the season, but I wouldn't say so much now. So I think we're such a work in progress. I think that seems to be the problem, doesn't it? Where, I think we have got better with some stuff, but we're a bit too easy to play against. I think that's the problem. Like we do keep some clean sheets, but sometimes it's because oppositions are missing chances, I think, as opposed to us, looking brilliant at the back at times. And then, going forward, we're just lacking something. I think sometimes pace is part of it, I think, because we are a little bit slow and predictable at times, whereas if we had a couple of players that were a bit quicker, obviously, maybe we wouldn't be like that, and it would be harder to play against us, and we would maybe create more things a bit quicker than what we do. So, yeah, there are some flaws, I think, in the side at the moment, and, we need to, there's certainly things we need to work on, and obviously I'm sure we'll discuss Patterson in a bit, but I think him coming back into the team is certainly something that might change things.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, we talk about pace being in the team, and an old saying, the no player can move as fast as a ball. At the end of the day, it's moving the ball quickly when the opportunity arises, and it's so infuriating watching us on a weekly basis, to be honest with you. At the moment, twice a week of the fixture pile-up, but when you see the ball break in midfield, or we win a ball back after a challenge, and immediately there's space for the ball to be released to Obafemi or Cham, or someone who's pulled off his man, he's out wide, and instead we take a touch, we take another touch, and the man comes across to mark our runner then, or the player that's peeled off his man, and it's no longer on. So then we're looking to play it to someone who perhaps is in a bit of space, and the move breaks down before it begins. And I feel like, as much as the pace would certainly help, and I know we've had these conversations on WhatsApp and such, but as much as I feel like pace would help us, it's also decision making. I also feel like we've got a big issue at the moment with bravery. and that sort of making decisions. You go, do you know what? I could lose the ball here. Here's an example, and we're going to skip ahead a little bit now to last night's game before we go back and analyse the others. There was a ball in the first half that Matt Grimes played through to Obafemi, who poked it and the keeper saved it. You recall it, Steve, the one I'm talking about? It sliced open the Luton defence. It was a stunning ball, but that felt like the anomaly. That felt like something. There we go. That is what we can do. That was a quick ball. He played it. He saw the run. He played it straight away through to him, and we very nearly scored from it. But it seems to be so few and far between that we pick those risky passes. And you can have all the possession in the world, but if you're going to be playing in front of 11 men all game, you're going to find it so difficult to create the chances to score the goals. And that's what really bugs me, I think, is that there's not enough bravery in that team. Is that a personnel issue for you, or is it something more mental, confidence-wise, maybe?
Yeah, I think sometimes players are a bit safe, aren't they? They don't like to play risky passes. I think it was Grimes last night, wasn't it, that played the for Obafemi, and I was at the time, it's like, I know it didn't quite come off with the finish, but it was such a good ball, and it really did give the opposition something to think about. And it's like, well, there's nothing wrong with playing those type of balls, and I don't mind when they don't come off.
Yeah.
Because when they do, like that incident last night, like what really wasn't far off a goal, was it? So, it's nice to see someone like Grimes playing that type of pass, because I think obviously he is a good player on the ball and stuff like that. But I think sometimes he doesn't look for those type of openings. So it was nice that he actually did on this occasion and played it, and obviously it came off, didn't it? So, I think you can't just blame the midfielders at times as well, because you do need your strikers to move around a bit. And I think, to be fair to Obafemi, I think he was trying.
Yeah, he was lively last night.
Yeah, he was lively. So, in that sense, that was, reasonably positive, I would say. And we need to see more of it, because I think if you do that more often, then, we are going to get chances, aren't we? And, I think we were unlucky that didn't go in, really. So that's definitely, we need to see more of that type of thing, really. And the other thing I did sort of like from last night in the first half, where I thought there were some reasonable moments. I think we were seeing the likes of Christie and Wolf of trying to get beyond, the last man a lot and then get the ball in the box. And we haven't seen enough of that, really, either, I don't think. So there were those, at least, positives, I think, to take from last night. We do need to see more of that. I think if we do, then obviously we will start to score a few more goals. So that's definitely something that we can take from what happened against Luton.
Yeah, I'll jump back now as I'm to and fro through the games. The QPR game on Tuesday the 25th. A 0-0 draw. Again, it was one of those games, really, wasn't it? That of course we finished it with 10 men, Steve, with Downs getting a red card in the 92nd minute. But it always felt like one of those games that not a lot was going to be given or taken by either side.
Yeah, I think so, really. It's it wasn't a classic. I mean, I was up there. They had a couple of chances, didn't they? They had the post with one, and there was a big save from Hamer late on. I never really felt we were going to score. There was a couple of chances. Perot had one, and then, if I'm honest, with 20 minutes to go, when Martin's made that sub, Perot's gone off and Wolf's gone off, I'm looking at the team and thinking, where is the goal now coming from? Because I worked it out. There were only 4 goals on the pitch at that point. I think Manning had scored 2, Downs had 1, and Obafemi had 1. And that is a concern for us, isn't it? I think only 7 players have scored for us this season. One of them is now a Coventry. So
yeah, and one of them has been exiled.
Hopefully back from exile soon, because
needs to
be. But that's the problem. Other people have got to chip in as well, haven't they? I think that's the point that I'm sort of trying to make. We can't be relying on everybody, and then relying on Perot and Patterson, which is what we have been doing. And obviously Perot has been starved of service recently. The other Patterson hasn't played, and it's sort of shown it, I think, hasn't it? So we need other people to chip in a bit, and that's, if they do, then that will be a big help for us, because we're not going to win many games without scoring goals. I mean, it is the lowest in the division, I think, 7 players, which isn't a shock, is it really? So yeah, that it's just been highlighted, I think, hasn't it, recently again? Because obviously we haven't scored in our last 3 now, have we? And since obviously after the enforced break, it's 2 goals in 5 games. I mean, it's not good enough, is it?
We're not the only ones saying it. It feels like there's probably close to 16,000 in the stadium seeing it every week, but the man in the dugout perhaps isn't seeing it. And it's the issue with Corey Smith playing as the attacking midfielder, Steve. It won't be the first time we mentioned it, and hopefully it will be the last, because I hope we never have to see it again. With all due respect to Corey Smith, he works hard and he means well, but he absolutely kills us in that position. We lack any sort of forward momentum. We lack any sort of drive. Last night's game, again, we will talk about it in greater detail in a bit, but the noticeable change, as you talked about that opening period where we looked threatening with Wolf and Cham, Christie getting at Luton, and really we had about a 50-minute spell where it looked like, you know what, this could come good for us tonight. Norton went off injured. Then Corey Smith was brought on, the shape was changed, and Chan was forced out wide. Smith was playing in a more advanced role and dead. And unfortunately, we've seen it every game that he plays in that hole. It's just not working. It's never worked. It leaves us with 3 defensive midfielders in there, and it just absolutely suffocates any creativity, any forward momentum we can have. And I cannot see at this stage why Russell Martin persists with it.
No, I can't either. I mean, with the greatest respect to Corey Smith, I think it's just not his attributes, is it? He's more of a deeper midfielder, a bit of a spoiler, really, as opposed to, a creative one. I mean, I think he's only scored about 6 goals in his career. So it's a misreading of his abilities, isn't it? He shouldn't be there. And I think he probably knows himself that he shouldn't be playing there. So, has the manager been doing it to make a point that he needs more players? Maybe. We don't know. But if he does genuinely think that is Corey Smith's future going forward, I would be concerned, because it really is not. And there's been nothing to suggest in any game that is a position that he should play in. So, yeah, I was pleased last night that he didn't play there, put it that way. I think, that when you see that the team, as you have done in a few of the other games, and he's playing in that position, that's one of the reasons why you're thinking that the goals are not going to flow for us. I mean, it's not him, is it? He hasn't scored for us in what's probably, I don't know, do you think he's played 50, 60 games for us? And it wouldn't be a great shock if he goes the rest of the season without scoring either, would it? So, yeah, he's not an attacking midfielder, and I don't want to see him playing there.
Yeah, it's tough. And in the games we're struggling to score on, we've got 1 goal in the 4 games we're going to analyse here. So, I mean, you don't need to tell anyone listening to this about our struggles, but they are there, they exist, and it means that we are left in a difficult situation, particularly as we're going to talk about Patterson in a little bit. But move on to Hull, which exposed once again our frailties at the back, Steve. And from what I expected of this season, I know we've had the COVID break in between, which has interrupted progress, but I expected a slow start. I expected it to kind of mirror MK Don's season last year, where it looked disastrous for the first couple of months, and then slowly you start seeing the seeds of growth, and then suddenly second half of the season or later on in the season, you're looking like, you just wish the season lasted 10 more games, because you could be onto something. And at this stage, we're still making the same mistakes week in, week out, being caught in the fullback position, completely exposed. And the players are getting in behind us, creating chances, getting balls into the box too easily. Players not tracking runners, which is infuriating. And when you look at the players that are meant to be tracking runners, particularly in the Hull game, Steve, they were midfielders. Why are our defenders not the primary defenders here? They seem to be playing in other positions, being dragged left and right. And you're left with the likes of, Jay Fulton being asked to track a striker running in at the back post. It seems nonsensical to me, but then I'm not a football manager. But it does feel like we're being caught week in, week out in the same space. And if you could identify an area of the pitch of the Swans this season where it really, really has been awful, it's in behind those wing backs, isn't it? We get caught there almost every game.
Yeah, I'd say that it is. I mean, as you say, the couple of goals we conceded there, it just felt like there were a couple of midfielders that seemed to be tracking the defenders, and I was thinking, what's going on here? We were just so shapeless, weren't we? I mean, that first half for me is one of the worst I've seen this season, but certainly the worst since towards the start of the season. The likes of somewhere like Preston, where we played really badly. I mean, I just don't know what we were doing. I mean, it took forever to sort of get in towards their box, didn't it, in the first half? And it was concerning, wasn't it? That, I mean, everyone can have the odd stinker, but that was bad. And the worst thing is, it come against a team that I really don't think are very good. I mean, down here, I thought they were abysmal. So to play like that was not good, was it? I did have sympathy for those that travelled up. I mean, the 2 down in 15 minutes or whatever. They must have just been thinking, what am I doing here? What have I done with my weekend? Certainly one of those ones, and frustrating. And we, like I said, we were defensively, it was poor. And it could have been more, couldn't it? Like, that was the worst thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. We didn't show up, and calamitous play at the back just catches us out every time. And unfortunately, as you said a little earlier on the podcast, a lot of it is our own undoing. It's our own, simple switching off at the, key moment. And you've just gone up for a team that struggles to score. Conceding a goal can be terminal, and we're finding it week in, week out that you concede after 4 minutes or whatever it was against Hull, away from home, and the players are probably looking around at each other at this point, thinking, well, who's going to be, are we going to score 2 here now to win this game? Or, and of course, it just never got going that first half. There was a rocket up the arse, no doubt. At half time, damage was done, and it left us with a bit of a sour taste in the mouth, and it took us up to last night's game. Then, Steve, I'll before we talk about the game, I'll analyse by saying I don't think I've seen a game, not in recent history at least, that has divided opinion quite as much as this one has. It has had every opinion that I can imagine speculated about it. It's the worst. I've seen loads of Russell Martin out tweets and posts. I've heard the boos. I've also heard people say that was incredibly unlucky. We're back to our best. I've seen that was the best performance under Russell Martin. I can't believe, whatever your opinion on the game was, I can't believe that we all watched the same game, yet the defining characteristics of the game are being analysed completely different by all sorts of supporters. I think every opinion has been shared on last night.
Yeah, it is a bit of a strange one, isn't it? I think I'm sort of more in the middle. I've certainly seen worse. It was definitely not as bad as Hull. No way. I thought we sort of started in a shaky way. We didn't look great defensively. And then there was that spell in the first half where we did look, reasonably decent. I thought there was, like I said, that move we were talking about where Grimes put Obafemi, and that around that period, that was good. When Norton went off and Smith come on, that wasn't great. I didn't think that was the right sub. I think Burns probably should have come on there. After that, we probably weren't so good. I think towards the end of the first half, Luton certainly could have scored. We looked a bit shaky there. They didn't really look as threatening, I didn't think, in the second half. Obviously,
no, they didn't
get a goal. What I would say is, after they did score, not saying I thought we played that well, but we did actually have some chances, some reasonable chances as well, which, we really probably should have taken one of them at least. So, in that sense, I am a sort of more encouraged in terms of we created more chances and better chances than we have for a while, but we didn't. Did I ever have that conviction we were going to score? I think that's sort of the problem of it, really. And there were certainly times there where it was a bit boring. So I think that's the concern, really. I know, obviously, you're probably a bit angrier and, pessimistic.
What makes you think that, Steve?
I've known you 30 years. That's enough.
Look, right, I'll start my analysis by saying it's 2022 and Matt Grimes is still on free kicks. I have no hope for this club anymore if this is what the manager sees and decides on every week. I think the bloke is nearing in on 1,000 free kicks for the Swans, and he's only hit the target with about 12 of them. I cannot believe he's still on them. This weekend, the weekend just gone against Hull, we had another free kick taker. 2 days later, we loaned him out to Hull. It just beggars belief that we've actually gone back to and look, I was forced in the end. I just could not cope in the end, as you know, Steve. 90th minute free kick, edge of the box, and you joked with me that Grimes was going to take it again, having ballooned one 10 minutes earlier. And I said, no, all jokes aside, I know you're trying to wind me up, but not even Grimes is going to put this down and take this again now, as it was his atrocious effort a little earlier on. And then he did, and he took it again. And I know he did. He tried to cross it in the second time, but I just completely lost it. I just thought, well, what's the point? Is there no one on the pitch that's going to put that ball down and say, Joe, I'm going to have a go, because he's useless at them? And I know people focusing on open play, and I get that, and I get most of our good play does come through open play and stuff. But free kicks on the edge of the box should be a chance to score. Set pieces in general. I know corners are notoriously, difficult to score from, but you should have a chance to score. We don't look like scoring ever from any set piece. And I feel like we were blessed with previous free kick takers of years gone by, and had opportunities where you thought, you know what, we might not have played well here, but we got a chance to score from this set piece. I just don't feel that way anymore. And we're not giving ourselves a leg up. We're not giving ourselves a chance. I hope he never takes another free kick. As much as I hope Corey Smith never plays in the attacking role again, I hope Matt Grimes never takes another free kick as long as he's at Swansea. I really don't. I don't understand what Russell Martin is doing there either. It's absolutely bonkers. And that, just as you know, I could not see straight anymore after that point. It was just lost my head with it. But generally speaking, I thought, as you alluded to, the boring element of it, I don't think we did enough. I really don't. I didn't think we. I thought the Luton goal was actually coming, even though they didn't have many goal-scoring opportunities in the second half. They did have 2 or 3 good ones, very good ones in the first half. And I just thought there was the sense that we were a bit lax in that hole between defence and midfield, and that's where the goal came from in the end. Cameron Jerome being allowed to bring the ball down unchallenged and pass it inside. There seemed to be a little bit of lax in our play on and off the ball. And it goes back to what we were saying about not taking risks, not playing the early pass. I think, as you mentioned, that 10-15 minute period in the first half where that Grimes passed over, Femi happened, Hannah's Wolf. To be honest, to be fair to Wolf, for the majority of last night, he was our bright spark, I thought. I don't think he gave up. I think he kept running, and I think it was probably his best game for us so far. And that's what we need more of. We need someone we need that sort of direct running. We need that enthusiasm on the pitch to stop being so safe. And I think that's where it boils down to. And maybe, as we're going to address in a little bit now, the Patterson situation could help us there. It should help us there. Because he's another player who's not afraid to try something, even if it means he loses the ball. And we just don't have enough of those players, do we?
No, we don't. That's the problem, isn't it? I mean, I've highlighted pace as being a big thing, and I honestly think it is a massive thing. I know we've lost Laird, haven't we? And I'm not saying that he's a better player than Christie. He may well not be, but we just lost that guy that had that real energy and could take us up the pitch. I mean, obviously we'll discuss the transfer window shortly. I mean, I'm not sure about Ogbina if he's got pace, but he really needs to have pace, because it's a team that really is lacking in it, isn't it? I mean, as you say, that other bits of creativity and stuff like that. That's what we're just so lacking in, aren't we? I think Wolf does have it in him, and obviously he's still building himself up to a bit of match fitness, I think. And last night was the best he's played, I would say, definitely. So there was some encouragement there with him, but we've just got to do more, I think, haven't we? That's the problem. We did see some signs of it yesterday, I think, from my point of view, and some of the stuff that we discussed earlier. So we just need to see more of it, don't we, in the next few games? I think if we do, then we will inevitably end up taking our chances. But we just got to hurt the opposition more. I mean, I think the keeper made 4 saves last night. I mean, it's not really enough, is it? We've got to ask more questions than that.
Yeah, it's there are some positives, even though I'm very much on the case of I do not see what some saw as that as a very strong performance or any of the like. I thought there were a couple of positives, as I mentioned. Hannes Wolf, I thought he showed promise. Obafemi, for me, one of his best games, in my opinion. I thought he actually showed some energy, showed willing, which my biggest criticism of Obafemi, he's been lazy as fuck since he's joined. He hasn't chased, he's ambled around the pitch. Last night he looked hungry, and I thought that was a real positive for us. Should have scored, of course, but if he keeps making that movement and keeps offering that threat to the defenders, then the chances and the goals will come. And it follows on from, of course, the whole game where he hit the woodwork on the weekend, and hopefully he's building and was eventually going to see what Michael Obafemi is all about. Let's hope that's the case anyway. So for me, there was a few positives. Of course, we saw the debut of Fisher as well, Steve. Don't really know what to make of his debut, to be honest with you. A few shaky moments, and a few with his feet as well, in fact. He didn't always find his man and put us under pressure a couple of times. Let's hope it was just debut nerves, because I'm thinking that is exactly why he was brought into the club, was to be that ball-playing goalkeeper that we wanted to build from the back with. And, let's hope that was just a bit of nerves on his part.
Yeah, it probably wasn't an amazing debut from him, really, was it? I said that was that one incident in the second half where that misplaced pass that could have put us in a bit of trouble. But I mean, it's always harsh, isn't it, to judge someone completely after one game? I mean, he's going to get run inside, isn't he? We'll have a look at it after that, really. But I did agree with the decision to bring him in. I must be honest. I don't think Hamer has been as good as he was at the start of the season, and this goalkeeper obviously was brought into play, wasn't he? So I think it was the right decision to put him in, and we'll see how he gets on now over the next few weeks.
I absolutely think, as leading into the transfer window here now, I think after you opted to spend what isn't an insignificant amount of money for us, I mean, at the end of the day, we don't seem to have 2 pennies to rub together. So if you're going to agree to a £400,000 deal for a goalkeeper, having decided to send your backup keeper away on loan, then they don't play. That is a completely nonsensical transfer. You may as well have kept Bender here, kept playing Hamer or Bender, saved your 400k, and used that to fill some desperate holes that we've got in this squad. Goalkeeping wasn't one of them, in terms of, we had 2 goalkeepers. I would have been happy to see either of them on the pitch on any given day. But we decided to make that move, and the fact that he wasn't playing up until now just seemed to be like, well, is this a massive waste of money? So I should imagine from the here on in, Fisher will be the goalkeeper of choice. Certainly has to, when we've spent the money that we have on him, we don't seem to have a lot more else to spend. So we'll see. I just always see a lot more of him, and hopefully he'll grow from here on. So that brings us to the transfer window. All in all, there was a fair bit of movement, but a lot of it was loans, whether they were loans in and out, or in or out. We'll go over the ins for now, and that is Andy Fisher, as we just talked about. We've seen a little bit of Cyrus Christie as well since he joined on loan. Hannes Wolf, of course, joined us earlier in the month on loan. Finley Burns has joined us on loan. Kyle Joseph has returned from loan. Added to that was another permanent signing, which was Nathaniel Ogbeta, who joined from Shrewsbury, on deadline day. It seemed to be, Steve, an absolute farce from the club. The fact that they were inquiring about left backs at Upper State on deadline day. It just beggars belief that we seem to be so disorganised that I feel like someone could turn up any given night at the Liberty Stadium and point them in the direction of someone they hadn't heard of before, because I sometimes think our scouting department is a series of Twitter accounts. It just beggars belief how disorganised they appear to be at the club.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not being funny, but it was obvious to everybody, wasn't it, that we were absolutely desperate to bring somebody in at left wing back. I'm not being funny. It needed to be like, even if it wasn't anyone that good in the end, we needed a body there because we don't have an established one yet. I mean, it genuinely looked like, though, didn't it, that we weren't going to bring somebody in, and you're thinking like, you physically can't be serious here. And then obviously in the end we did, but yeah, I mean, you see some of the stories that came out yesterday, like Ryan Longman, that a deal was agreed, and obviously it got to a certain stage and the owners pulled the plug. I mean, what on earth are they doing sticking their nose into transfers? I mean, look, unless there's something that's outside the budget, their noses should be as far away from those deals as possible. At the end of the day, Jason Levian is a man that tried to sanction a loan deal to Leeds for Daniel James. Now, I'm not being funny, but that was one of the worst deals probably in the entire English football pyramid in probably about a decade or something. It was genuine lunacy. And you would think that after that, that nose should be kept out of everything because he nearly cost us, I would say, quite possibly about 10 million quid. Like, it was literally that stupid, and everybody else could have told him that as well. So, why?
Well, our chairman fell on his sword for it.
Yeah, and literally, they should be thanking it because his parting shot was literally something that saved us a small fortune and would have caused us a lot more problem if he didn't do it. So, I just don't understand. Like, you can't bring a manager in and basically start dictating players to him. I mean, you've got to let a manager pick the players. Now, it's fair enough if you go, right, this player now, we can't afford the fee that it will take to bring him in. Yeah. Now, that's a different ballgame, that is. You have to say with that, right, that's fine, because you're running in a club, aren't you, that is financially sensible and you're not putting yourself at risk. So I'll never stick the boot in over that. But the fact that a deal was agreed and then we pulled the plug, I mean, it's just not acceptable, is it? It's embarrassing, if anything. Like, I bet Brighton were furious with us. Like, they're probably thinking to themselves, why would we want to do a deal with Swansea in the future then? Because they've proven now that they might mess us about and we might pick a deal with them over someone else. And then they could miss out on it. And then a team that maybe originally wanted the player may have gone elsewhere and then they can't shift them. So
it's not the first time we've done it either. We fucked Liverpool off a couple of times.
Yeah, with Nat Phillips apparently last year we did that, and then obviously the fact we didn't play Reece Williams this year, we're probably not in any good books, especially either. So the fact is the Swans probably have two reputations now, don't they? One for messing people around, and the other one, maybe not so much now, but certainly in the early part when we came down, has been a soft touch on deadline day. And then both of those things are not things that you want to be associated with. So it's not good, is it? Let's be frank about it. It's wholly unprofessional, and it just doesn't reflect well on us. And it's not going to help us going forward. So why are we doing it? And it seems like there were other deals that maybe could have, like the Matt O'Reilly one. I can't be too critical, partly because the 1.5 million overall, that might be outside the budget. We don't know what the finances are, and the fact is we didn't agree a deal with that anyway. So it doesn't sound like at least there was any messing about going on like there was with the Ryan Longman one. So I can't be too critical of that, although I think it's, he probably would have been a good investment for us and would have been someone that we would have ended up selling for more than we paid. So in that sense, it's frustrating because, if you can do those type of deals, obviously that's what we're going to need to do a lot of going forward. So that is some frustration, but you can't be overly critical, but you can't agree deals with people and then pull out just because the owner thinks that, that's not right for us. I mean, what the hell is he playing at? Keep your nose out, because as we've seen previously, when he sticks his nose in, it's not good for anybody.
Yeah, the thing is, I think, Steve, is that, like you say, the budget is the budget, and there's going to be conversations between our recruitment team, Russell Martin, and the owners of what we can afford. And that's where it should start and end. It should be a case of, can we afford this player? There's going to be, a little bit more in terms of, if you look at the Matt O'Reilly situation, it became apparent, judging from what Russell Martin was saying and what we heard about Matt O'Reilly, that he was potentially a 10, 12 million pound player and waiting there, and to be fair to Russell Martin, the players he's brought in, they all look like we're going to make money on them. The permanence. If you could just take Flynn Downs, for example, we've had an absolute bargain there. He's going to make the club money, whether it be next year or whatever, whenever it may be, when the club decide to cash in, it'll be for a significant profit. So you can see the argument for saying, look, can we stretch the budget? Can we push the boat out just a little bit here? Because you will, you'll thank me in 18 months, 2 years' time. And those conversations can happen. But in terms of pushing a deal as far as they could with the player from Brighton and then pulling the plug in at last minute, I was having a conversation with someone last night who said, at the end of the day, we were waiting on Fulton and Danda to leave, and no one came in for them. But there's a difference between inquiring about a player and pushing the deal to the brink of being signed and then pulling out. That's bad business practice, I'm afraid. And you're going to piss teams off, as you said. So, I mean, we seem to be creating a bit of a list here of teams that we've messed about in the transfer market, and I don't like it. I don't like the way we do business, and we're not going to get favours, and we're not going to get, we're not going to be trusted with people and players and stuff. And of course, we can talk about the Reece Williams situation. One of the ones to depart in January and had his loan ended by Liverpool. No great surprise there, Steve. Just never got going here. Reminiscent of Mark Gahey's start at the club before the lockdown, so him turn into Maldini at the back. But he was at the first he was very shaky, wasn't he, in terms of where he started, and Reece Williams never really got out of the blocks at all during his time here, and seemed to be so shaky, so nervous that he just never settled.
Yeah, I think you do wonder, don't you, if what happened at Luton, where he was racially abused, had some sort of an impact as well, really, which is a shame, isn't it? Because obviously nobody deserves to go through that type of experience. It just didn't work out, did it? I think for anybody really. So I think the sensible thing is for him to go back up to Merseyside. So I wish him well. It's one of those things. Some moves don't work out, and this was one of them. I think there's not really a lot you can do about it, and hopefully things will be better for him whenever he makes his next move, really.
Yeah, obviously they'll talk as well about yesterday regarding the fallout of the transfer window. I know you touched upon it a little bit earlier on about how the transfers came and fell away for us. One of the ones that hit us unawares in the boardroom level was Ethan Laird being recalled, which no one expected. Fair to say he'd gone significantly off the boil since the start of the season, but it wasn't a position we anticipated we need to cover for during this window. I'm seeing a recurring pattern going around. It seems to be happening quite often the last couple of years, where teams will send players out on a season-long loan, then cancel the loan and send them somewhere else in January. A few teams, I mean, we obviously benefited from it with Conor Gallagher a couple of years ago, but in terms of, I've seen it 2-3 times maybe this January alone where teams have done that and called team players back and sent them elsewhere. It's a trend which is really upsetting clubs, not at the top level of the pyramid, who rely on loan signings and then find themselves in a sticky situation.
It does seem harsh, doesn't it? I think when you're doing this, because I mean I can understand it if it's to do with players not playing. I mean, it's difficult to really criticise that then, isn't it? But I mean, Ethan Laird was a regular, and there was no way that he wasn't going to be a regular for the rest of the season. And I think you use the Conor Gallagher example then. It was the same thing with him at Charlton. I mean, he was a regular there.
Yeah.
To pull him out of there I remember at the time thinking to myself, that's a little bit arsey, really. I know we benefited from it, of course, but it's not. Yeah, it does seem to be happening more and more. I think it must be to do with bigger wage contributions and maybe bigger loan fees and stuff. But I mean, I would argue that as long as the player's playing and he's happy and he's improving, like why would you want to really go and rock the boat? Because I mean, Bournemouth did a lot of business, didn't they? For the last period of the window. And what if Laird now doesn't play? I mean, that's not going to do anybody any good then, is it? So I think it'd be better from United's point of view if they'd left him here purely because he was playing. But it's up to them. He's their player. It's their prerogative, isn't it? But yeah, it does seem now like the bigger clubs sort of can get away with now, can't they? Treated some of the smaller ones in not a great way, and it's it's disappointing, isn't it? I think that's what's thing. And Laird himself may have wanted to stay here, and he obviously probably didn't have much of a say in it either. So
no.
It's not something I like particularly. I think if you send someone somewhere and they're doing well, then I just think you should leave it as it is. Really, I don't think pulling them out and moving them elsewhere is great.
Yeah, we've got had to deal with that. Of course, we saw Cyrus Christie come in, who's had he's had a positive start to life in a Swan shirt. Steve, he looks busy. He looks every bit as experienced as we'd expect him to, really, and it looks all right. He looks good, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think Christie's a good signing. I mean, we've got a lot of younger players here. I think at the moment that's a good thing when we're talking about trying to maybe bring in players and then try and improve them and sell them on and stuff. But I think there's always room as well for some more experienced players. I mean, I think he's 29. He's played about 300 games at this level. I think that's a pretty good signing. I would say. I mean, we've done well to get him. And the other thing, to be fair, we managed to get him really. Not that it didn't take too long to get that over the line, especially considering because we were probably completely caught off guard by the leg situation. So yeah, I think that's a good replacement. We've done well with that one, I would say, and he's made a good start, and long may it continue. And obviously, the one good thing about the Christie deal is he does have obviously he's coming on loan.
Out of contract, isn't he?
Yeah, his contract's up in the summer, so he's playing for his future as well. So it's good.
I say we might not necessarily be able to afford his demands. I know he took a significant pay cut to come here, but for him, as you rightly say, he's going to get a lot of game time between now and the end of the season. So even if he has demands which are beyond our pay packet, it's within our and his best interests that he has the best 3 or 4 months of his career, because he's playing, as you say, he's playing for his next club if we can't afford him.
Yeah, I think what's interesting, I think, though, is there's going to be a lot of players this summer who probably out of contract. And also because of COVID, a lot of the clubs outside of the big ones that are probably not affected really by what's gone on over the last couple of years. Like the rest of them are probably having to cut their cloth accordingly. So I can see a lot of players having to accept less terms than before. So I think the chances of us getting him are probably quite high. I mean, if you look at Patterson's a good example. Obviously, we will talk to him as we keep saying, but he probably wouldn't have usually been on a deal of 1 year plus an option, before. And likes of Uncham wouldn't have been out of contract going into the final day of the transfer window. So, I think it's already taken an impact, but I think it will again this summer because there have been a lot of players that were on contracts with 2 years and a bit to run when the pandemic started, and a lot of clubs haven't recovered really from that. So you're going to see, I think, some players maybe drop into a lower division than maybe what they would have done previously and having to accept less money. So I think Christie probably falls into that bracket. So he probably is going to have to accept that he won't get the type of terms that he may have got before. And, the fact that he's at what is, you'd like to think, a fairly stable mid-championship club in terms of position, then he probably won't get many better offers than us, I don't think. So I think there is a reasonable chance he'll stay here if he does well.
I hope you're right. Early signs are promising. I mentioned earlier on about the permanent signing of Nathaniel Ogbeta on deadline day, and well, as the window closed, really, that seemed to be rushed through last minute. As much of a farce as the whole recruitment process for that position is, this is exactly the sort of player we should be purchasing in our current financial situation, Steve, isn't he? He's young. He's got a few months left in his contracts. We got him relatively cheap. He's got potential to grow and be worth more in the future. I mean, this is the blueprint of our transfer business going forward, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's what we need to be looking at, as we keep saying, really, isn't it? We've got to get these players in that we can improve. I think that's sort of where we did go a little bit wrong, I think, under Cooper. I mean, I get what we were trying to do by bringing in players on loan and trying to plug things short term and thinking, right, well, if this can get us back into the Prem, then obviously it's going to be the type of gamble that pays off. But then when you don't get in there, it's a bit different, because I think the last couple of years we've been looking at the team and thinking, who are the assets that will fetch us money? And I think when Roden left, I was thinking, I think the pool has now dried up quite a lot. So
I think Derby did the same under Frank Lampard, didn't they? They brought in 3 or 4, decent Premier League youngsters there to plug gaps on loan, and obviously well, the Derby situation is very much well documented now. But it was on the premise, as you say, of if they gets them into the Premier League, which obviously it nearly did. Then it's a great tactical move. But if it doesn't, then you're set to rebuild then, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the issue with Derby as well was that I think before they had Lampard, obviously they, under the likes of Steve McLaren, they were spending quite a bit of money. So I think that was sort of their last throw of the dice after they chucked money and it didn't work really, and then they had to change it. But yeah, I think you've got to be clever about it, haven't you? You do have to invest to a certain extent. And let's be honest, every club in this division now is probably running at a loss. So it'll come to the summer, and arguably every year we're going to have to sell somebody just to try and balance the books. So so you have to do your recruitment, I think, with that in mind. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, later in the season where, we've brought in the likes of Pirro on the cheap and we've brought in the likes of Downs on the cheap, and they're the type of guys that you would have thought now would go for more money than what we paid for them. So, you always need to have those type of players with you, I think. And the thing is as well, if you can, sort of build a reputation as a club that will do that, and also one that then, if good offers come in, you won't stand in the way of players, then not a bad one to have, and it's a realistic one, really, isn't it? I mean, let's be honest, the experts at it over the last couple of years have been Brentford. I don't know what they paid for Ollie Watkins, probably a couple of million, and they sold him for 30 odd. Now, I'm not saying we can necessarily do that, and I think in the COVID post-world that those type of fees are unrealistic anyway, but it does show you that if you can be intelligent, I mean, you really can, make money off that, and that becomes sustainable, and it allows you then to invest in players again then. So that's definitely the way to go. And Ogbina does sound like one that hopefully could be, another one with potential that we hopefully can improve. And it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
Yeah, one of the signings that perhaps we didn't think maybe was a necessity as per se, but was a welcome addition anyway, was Finley Burns on loan from Man City. Obviously, we were linked with a number of Man City players that didn't come to fruition, Steve. But this one, I think it was like James McAtee, wasn't it? Was the big one. I think that Swans have been caught in all window. In the end, unsuccessful in their pursuit. But he comes in with good pedigree. He's certainly got a stature about him in terms of giving us some much needed height at the back. And if he can play football, that kills the two birds with one stone. Because I think so much this season, haven't we? We've been playing between the idea of having ball playing centre halves, but lacking perhaps some imposing characteristics. So when you chuck in you like sort of Norton and Manning in your back three, then you're losing a lot of height and stature there, aren't you? But this guy, he's a big imposing figure, but he also is very comfortable with the ball at his feet apparently. So hopefully that'll play out nicely for the Swans, and he can get a bit of game time in there, and hopefully we'll benefit as a result.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, we've got so many games left to come, haven't we? I think that's the concern really about why we needed to make sure we brought some players in, because there's just so many midweeks, and we've played 2 years. I think we got Stoke coming up in a midweek. There's Bournemouth in a few weeks. I think Fulham's been rearranged for midweek, and then there's Peterborough. This is all before about the 20th of March. So there's so many games, and we are going to have to rotate some positions. I mean, we saw a bit of it last night, didn't we, where the manager made a few changes, and that it's important because you don't want players to be burnt out. I mean, I think that might be why Perot didn't start last night, for example. I mean, he's barely had a break, has he? So, I think I was glad we brought a centre half in. I felt we needed to do that. Whether he's going to be anything more than like Rhys Williams and play the odd game here and there, I don't know. But to be honest, it would be good to bring in a more commanding centre half that is good with the ball at his feet, because I think that is something that we're lacking, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
So, if that is him, then that's great, and I'd like him in the team.
Absolutely. As I say, Carl Joseph came back as well as loan, cut short and drawn back to the club. He was the sort of player I'd have liked to have come on when Norton went off. If we were going to change our shape and bring on someone to play up the pitch, I'd have brought him on before Corey Smith, to be honest with you, so we didn't fall into the trap of having the Downs, Smith, Grimes trio in there again, which kills me. But yeah, from what little we've seen of him since his return, I think he shows a lot of promise. He certainly likes to work hard. and in a field position of the pitch where we seem to be quite pedestrian at times, that little bit of effort and movement around and hassling defenders can make a bit of a difference. So I'm optimistic that, as you say, with all the midweeks coming up, we'll hopefully see a little bit more of him as the weeks go on, and he can stake a claim for a more regular berth next season.
Yeah, I think so. That's definitely got to be the way that we look at it, isn't it? So, it's just a work in progress, isn't it? We're building something that's we knew was never gonna turn overnight kind of thing, and we are just looking to build for the future with younger players and try to improve. And I think next year is going to be the year that we probably really judge the manager on, isn't it?
Yeah, there's also movement for wages purposes. Like I say, the decision to let Jake Bidwell go on a free and the such, but more so than any manager I can remember in recent history is the insistence of Russell Martin that he sent those youth fringe players out on loan to get much needed game time. The Liam Cullens, Morgan Whittaker, Brandon Cooper, Stephen Bender, all gone out on loan this window. Liam Walsh, but he went more tactically so we could fund in the signing of the Ogbeta, the fullback. So it allowed us to make a bit of wiggle room there with Liam Walsh, but the others certainly about looking to the future, it feels, and that's something that we've been banging that drum about for seasons, Steve, haven't we? It's pointless being here and sitting on the bench and saying he's involved with the first team. I'd so much rather these players go out and play 25, 30 games in League One, League Two if it has to be, and really get some first team experience under their belt, because that's where they learn their trade, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we've done the right thing, to be honest. Loaning a lot of these players out. I know some of them were, have featured on the bench and stuff like that, really. But I mean, a lot that we need to know how good they really are, don't we? I mean, Liam Cullen's a great example. I mean, the guy's 22 years old. He really should have had a loan before now. I'm not blaming him because I don't think it's his fault. But these at 22, we're not talking about potential. You've got to be doing the business, really, haven't you? And,
yeah.
I think that loan is a make or break for him. I think Whittaker, he's playing as well. That's only a good thing. Jordan Garrick seems to have done really well at Plymouth. Ollie Cooper, likewise, at Newport. And, these guys may well be players that we're looking at next season. And we want to know how good they are, don't we? So, and then obviously Brandon Cooper now has gone to Swindon. And, the Brandon Cooper one last year when we recalled him from Newport and then didn't play.
Pointless.
Was one that genuinely did anger me because he was doing really well there. And it really was a needless thing to do. I know he picked up an injury when he came back here then, but I just don't know why we did it. It really was really stupid. I just think that these youngsters, if they're not playing, then, loaning them out is by far the more sensible thing to do. And I think, when the summer comes, we'll have some answers, won't we, about how good some of them are and if they will play a part in our future or if we're going to move them on, really. So I
forgot about Dan Williams as well, of course, who went to Ireland.
They both got over to Ireland. So I think that they'll be harder to judge, I think, won't they? Because, we don't really know what the standard is like in Ireland. But again, I'm just pleased that they're going to be going out and playing football because, you don't want your career to sort of stagnate in the way that, I would say Liam Cullen's has, really, because, like I say, 22, you need to be playing. At least a lot of the others are a little bit younger than that in general. So, yeah, we'll see what happens, I think, next... in the summer. I think with Kyle Joseph, as mentioned earlier, I think if we're not going to play much of him, then, you'd have to say that was a mistake as well, because, I think he had been playing for Cheltenham, and you don't really want to recall people if they're playing unless you feel we need them. But, so I'm hoping he will end up getting more minutes. Otherwise, I think we've made a mistake.
I think with him, the only thing I would say with him is if he doesn't get on the pitch, he's certainly always going to be on the bench. Well, I would think so, just because our options attacking-wise are so limited. Specifically now that we've let Cullen and Whittaker go out. So I feel like Joseph is going to be in and around that option for Russell Martin between the end of the season. And he may end up being, chasing a game with 15 minutes to go or something, that sort of option, or he may start games. If he does neither, then again, it beggars belief because he is one that does show promise. And and it would be a great shame if we didn't at least look to see what he could do in the cutthroat situation of an actual football match. But it'll be interesting to see. We've put it off for long enough. Let's talk Jamie Patterson, Steve. Will he, won't he? Was he going to? Wasn't he going to? He has been in a self-imposed exile. Is that a fair comment for the last couple of weeks? Russell Martin has defended him to the hilt. Only he and Patterson will know exactly the conversation that have gone on behind the scenes there. And the real story with regards to his contract situation, we may never actually find out the gritty details now that he is staying. Nothing got finalised. There were 3 offers on the table in the end by the time deadline day came around from QPR, Steve. The third and final offer got rebuffed, and that was it. But they were long way away from the club's valuation of the man, so there was no way they were going to accept it. And for once, I'll credit the club for their attitude there, because so often we have buckled on deadline day just to make the business happen, haven't we? And in this instance, we've actually, dug our heels in. Whether it was Russell Martin doing it, I don't know. But for some reason, we've decided on this one to dig our heels in and say, no, this is our valuation. You meet it or we don't get him. And credit to the club, they did that.
Yeah, they did. I think, Patterson, 30-year-old, I think those type of players in this market are never going to go for much now. So I can't say I'm overly shocked that nobody's come in with the type of offer that we were looking for. But as you say, I mean, just you do wonder sometimes if we just accept anything on deadline day we've done in the past. So it's good that we didn't do that. I suppose it is a tricky one now, isn't it? What we're going to do? I mean, we've got to reintegrate him. It's as simple as that, because the games have shown that we genuinely do need him, and Joel Perreault needs him as well. So yeah, it's not a great one. I think Patterson himself needs to come up and say something, doesn't he? He needs to explain his actions and justify it. That means he's going to throw the owners under the bus. That's not a problem, because let's be honest, a lot of us have got no time for them anyway. I think I'm not sure how much we went into it last time or whatever, but I think from my point of view, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he was promised something and then obviously the board have gone back on their word, which is poor, and you can't really do it. At the same time, you don't down tools and not play, so he doesn't come out with that great either. I think what the club should have done, they should have triggered the extension and said, look, we're going to trigger the extension before it gets to January, because that means you can talk to other clubs. So that means we want you to stay, get the transfer window out the way, and then after that we'll talk about adding another year to your contract and some sort of wage increase.
That's what should have happened. We talked about this, didn't we? Safeguard his future at the club, and then say we're going to renegotiate your contract straight away as soon as we know that you're protected and you're not going to be able to walk away for nothing.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we should have done. And the thing is as well, if there was a promise of something better as well, let's be honest, the players are talking. They'll all know about it, and they're probably then annoyed themselves if that's the case, and probably also thinking, well, we don't trust this club. We don't trust the people behind the scenes to do right by us either. What's going to happen if we're in a similar situation? So you're not doing it yourselves any good. The board probably think if that is the case, they pulled a fast one, and they're thinking, right, well, we've got him under contract. I'm going to offer him a better one, but looking at the bigger picture then.
Absolutely.
So I think they should have offered him something better, and if they had, that would have avoided the whole issue, wouldn't it? So it's a disappointing thing. But like I said, I think Patterson does have to take some responsibility, because if me or you decided to down tools because we weren't happy in work, I think we'd be out the door. So it's disappointing. The thing is, it's disappointing for the fans, isn't it? We haven't done anything at the end of the day, and we want to see one of our best players on the pitch. And I sort of feel sorry for the manager as well, because he's sort of stuck in the middle. And obviously the other side of the coin is, last August nobody wanted him. We offered him a deal when nobody did. So he should sort of remember that as well, I think. But I don't think it's a black and white situation.
It's clearly not, and I feel like a lot of fans have jumped on the Jamie Patterson slag him off kind of situation, and I get the anger. I mean, it's obvious that there would be anger and stuff, and the situation as it was in the summer for him, you think, I'll be grateful for what you've got here. We took a chance on you, etc. But it's clearly, and it's been clear to me from the off, that it's never going to have been a black and white situation. It's clearly a breakdown in promises and communication. Jamie Patterson feels wronged. There's simply no other way about it. The fact that he agreed to the extension early, if he was interested and wanted to leave the club, and that was his motivation for throwing his toys out the pram, he would never have agreed to do it early. You'd have said, no, I'd not have to sign this until whatever the trigger point is, 25 games or whatever it was. And it would have allowed him then to talk to other clubs and agree a pre-contract agreement sorted. But no, the club has sorted that early with his blessing, and then we've ended up him pulling himself out of the club and out of the squad and whatnot, and Russell Martin saying he's not in the right frame of mind. There's some other story there to be told, isn't there? I completely agree with what you're saying. There needs to be a PR exercise being run by the club now on Patterson, whether it ends up with him saying, you know what, my agent said X, Y, and Z. He said I could get a better deal here, there, whatever. I've realised I was being badly advised and I've taken stock accordingly. Or whether, like you say, he goes straight out and says, you know what, I was promised, this, that, and the other, and now as soon as I agreed to the contract extension, they pulled the plug on it. And if he wants to go honest that way, as you say, he's not going to get a lot of bad press if he decides to tell it as it is regarding our owners, because Swans fans know all about them. So yeah, but there needs to be a PR exercise. He cannot just simply walk back into the squad for me next weekend and nothing have been said. I mean, it can't just be Russell Martin to have spoken. I think fans want something that they can pin on it and just say, do you know what, this is what happened, this is why he was upset, and we move on from it. But yeah, I expect there'll be something in the press this week, especially as we've been reading that Martin wants to integrate him back into training this today and onwards. So it'll be certainly interesting to see what happens there anyway. Is there any part of you during the last few days or so that made you hope and wish you just needed to leave because of the stink that was around the club, or were you always hoping that reintegration was a possibility?
I think I was open to reintegration, but I think if he was going to go, it was a case of we had to bring somebody else in, and I think if that was going to happen, then okay, you sort of dust yourself down and move on. But I mean, it was always going to be difficult, I think, to bring somebody else in, wasn't it? So, I think it's the outcome, as long as he's willing to come back and play, it's not the worst outcome, I don't think. But time will tell, won't it? It's difficult to say for certain, isn't it, until we see what happens. But no one can surely dispute that we need it, because it's not been great, has it, the last few weeks, and goal scoring has been a big issue for us. And obviously, we're talking now about the man that might be able to sort that out for us. So, yeah, we've got to do it, and yeah, fingers crossed, he'll be reintegrated and he'll do the job.
Yeah, well, it has to be now, doesn't it? I mean, he's our player. Until the summer at least. See if that situation changes then when the window reopens. But for now, we're looking at a player who makes Perot tick as well, of course, who's struggled particularly with service since Patterson's been out of the squad. So it'd be very interesting to see how that develops anyway over the coming days and weeks. And so we'll move on now to look at the games coming up. First and foremost, we've got Blackburn on the weekend. That's an evening kickoff on Saturday. Steve, Blackburn are flying. And in a league which we thought was a two-horse race, well, they're the third horse that's come in and relentlessly pushed their way into that top two now. It's going to be a tough game, isn't it? Even though it's in front of the Liberty Stadium crowd.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, Blackburn have been the informed team, really, haven't they, for the last little while or whatever. I didn't really see them going this high at the start of the season, but ever since Ben Brera...
He added a name onto the back of his shirt, yeah.
Yeah, ever since he's added Diaz to his name, he's been fine, hasn't he? And obviously, he should be back by the weekend as well. They've been in South America playing qualifiers for the World Cup, but I think he should be back involved. So, yeah, look, it's Blackburn's job is going to be quite difficult, I think, to sort of get into the top two. But they have sprung a surprise, and they did do a couple of late deals. Ryan Hedges, who was at the Swans,
yeah,
a few years back, come through the youth here. He's gone there from Aberdeen, and Ryan Giles has gone there. Obviously, there was at Cardiff, and by the sounds of it, we could have done that deal. So it's I think obviously Blackburn will be coming down here feeling quite confident, I would have thought, because we've not been great. And Tony Mowbray sides, they always have a go at you, don't they? They
like to attack, don't they?
Yeah, they tend to be easy on the eye. They're not always the best defensively either, mind. But I think I don't think it's going to be 0-0 on Saturday, but I do fear that they may put a couple past us.
Yeah, well, defensive frailties aside, can we hurt a team that have their own? I mean, at the moment we're showing quite toothless at one end and porous at the other, which is the dreaded combination, isn't it? We'll see what happens. As you say, you can never really. One thing you don't want to do with the Swans is put them in your accumulator, because you just don't know what's going to happen. We are due a turn up in form. We're 19th in the league, Steve. What did we say earlier? 2 wins in 12. Is that? I mean, if that's where we're looking in terms of results, it's really, really poor run of form. It's a worrying run of form, and I really fear that I'm not seeing at the moment the progression in our style of play through the season that I'd have hoped and expected to see. And that is accounting for the fact that we took a month off with the COVID breaks, which obviously is going to be disruptive. But I'm seeing the same mistakes happening. I'm seeing the same frailties being displayed on a weekly basis. And I'm not seeing evidence of what's being worked on the training ground. Is that a fair criticism?
Yeah, I think it is to an extent. I think the problem is some of these players just aren't good enough to maybe play the way that we want. And I think defensively that seems to certainly be the case. So are we going to have to wait until we can get players in that can play this way, or does the manager need more time to get these players in shape, type of thing? But obviously he's had a lot of time with most of them now. And I mean, if they're not in shape by this stage, or certainly making improvements, then you'd have to say that maybe those guys are not going to be right for us long term. So I think that's sort of the predicament that we're in, isn't it? I mean, I think the overall window, as you say, we did the bare minimum read, and we didn't get in. We probably needed a more commanding centre half, I would say, and ball playing centre half to come in. Ideally, we didn't do that, did we? So, for example, we might have to wait until the summer to get that type of player. I mean, we improved other areas, but it's still a work in progress, and it was always going to take, I think, a few windows to improve and time for the players to embrace the style as well. But I think it would have been nicer to have been further down the road, wouldn't it? I think that's a fair comment.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's for me, it's not about being the polished article at this stage. It's about just seeing those sorts of shoots of growth, and and perhaps analysis. Where do we concede here? Where do we concede there? Right. Okay. How do we stop this from happening next week? So when the ball comes here, whatever, make sure there's not 30 yards of space in behind you for someone to break into and create a goal scoring opportunity. And as I say, these situations keep reoccurring every week, and it doesn't leave us in a position of strength when we are gifting the opposition a 1 or 2-0 head start, and then asking us to get back into it when we can't score for toffee. So I think from our point of view, there's certainly a lot that we perhaps have failed to improve on in terms of our analysis of where the games have been won and lost this season. And that's something that I hope with the signing of the Shrewsbury fullback will allow us, bring Manning back into the back three, the ball playing centre half, which we know he is. Give that Shrewsbury fullback the freedom of the wing to attack, because we know Manning will cover well down there. So it hopefully will improve when they see these January recruits bed in. But like I say, no one wanted us to be down in 19th at this stage of the season. We're not looking over our shoulders. I don't think there's any real danger of that this season. But it's a lowly position, and it's one that Russell Martin himself will be acutely aware that he'll want to improve on before the season's out. how do you see it going with Blackburn? I fancy it probably being myself. I think I'd probably go for something like 3-1 away, which is not really as optimistic as I'd like to normally be.
Yeah, I'm 2-1 Blackburn, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Yeah, they, if we keep Diaz quiet, we're halfway there, but that's a big ask this season.
We'd like to think he might at least be tired, so that could be a bonus. Hopefully not at his best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, who bloody thought when they lost Adam Armstrong at the end of the window in the summer, you'd have thought that was them. That was them, big, screwed them over big time, but not the case at all. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully me and Steve are both wrong there. We will look quickly at the Stoke game the following Tuesday, because we won't be able to do a podcast before then. Steve, they did a right number on us earlier on in the season, don't you? Remember Sam Clucas in front of the East Stand? Bell end.
How could I forget?
Yeah, I don't even have a problem with Clucas myself, but the fact that he did that in front of the East Stand, I can go screw himself. But yeah, so essentially we've got we've got to go up there and put one over on them to get back at them, really, because they tore us apart down here. Do you have any optimism about going up to Stoke, the Britannia Stadium, and coming back with a result?
Not a happy hunting ground for us. Obviously, we did win last year. Before that, we'd last won in the year 2001. Before that, 1981. And before that, 1961. So I would say it's a fairly safe bet that we will not win this game.
Can I say last year's win was not at all controversial either?
Yeah, exactly. I think the phrase daylight robbery could be used for that one.
Oh, well, so just hurl ourselves down in the box. Norton can do that again on Tuesday.
Although I must admit, because it was Stoke, it was a little bit sweet, because
of course it was.
Let's be honest. Let's be honest about this, right? That didn't touch the sides in terms of like Stoke have still massively added a few numbers on us down the years, like with decisions and stuff like that. So we were long overdue a stinking one. It's just a shame that we weren't there to rub it in. But look, I'm not optimistic going up there. If anything, I'm a bit surprised the Stoke gone a bit higher up, because
they did look for a while that they were playoffs, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean they did play very well down here, and I was thinking, this looks like a team that's a pretty serious playoff contender here. But they're sort of in that top half, aren't they? But I don't think they've kicked on in the way that I thought they might have done. So
not a million miles away, mind, if they do beat us.
No, they're in there. They're in the cluster, aren't they?
Yeah.
I thought they would have been a bit higher, if I'm honest. But look, that will be a tough game. And as I say, we don't tend to do well there, do we? And but we may well come away with something. I think if we did get a point there, I'd be quite pleased with that. It'd be a good result. Stoke are, I think that this is definitely the best Stoke have been since they've been relegated. I mean, they came down the same time as us, and if we're honest, they've massively underachieved. I mean, when they first came down, I was fairly sure they would go straight back up based on...
They kept most of their squad as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and they brought in the likes of Tom Ince and Benik Afobe, players who've done very well at this level previously, and for whatever reason, it just didn't click to it, and they've been through a lot of managers, and yeah, they've spent a lot of money, the owner certainly has spent a lot of money, and it certainly hasn't paid off, has it? So yeah, you'd expect Stoke to have done better than they have, but this year they do look like they're certainly in with a chance of top six, aren't they? Which is something that you can't have said since they came down. So they'll be pleased with that. And obviously, there's one or two of our former players there. You mentioned Clucas, and obviously these days the captain is Joe Allen, isn't it?
Yeah. We had some horrors up there, haven't we? Wilfred Bonney, when he was there, of course. How do you see that one going then? You say a point would be great. Would you expect it, hope for it? Is that what you predict?
I am going to predict the 1-1, actually. I think we might come away with something there. Well, I'm certainly hoping that we will come away with something. We could, if we get a point, there's not going to be too much moaning, I don't think, unless, we dominate and don't win or something. But I don't really see us doing that, unfortunately. So, yeah, I will predict us to come away with a draw, which would be, I'd be happy with that, and I don't think I'd be the only one.
No, I'd be happy with that as well. I'm actually going to predict us for a 1-0 defeat up there. Just the idea of that stadium, I just see us losing all the time up there. Yeah, so I'm going to go for a 1-0 defeat. I hope I'm wrong on both counts this week because it really doesn't leave us with a great run of form if we do we pick up nothing for the next two games. Based on the transfer window, Steve, and where we're at now, how would you rate it? Would it be a 5 out of 10 for you?
Probably 5 or 6, something like that. I think we just did the bare minimum, didn't we? The players that we let go, they all did get replaced in the end. We needed more ideally, but we haven't left ourselves worryingly short in any position. But, you know, at the same time, a couple of injuries here and there, we're not going to be looking great if they're in certain positions either. So, you know, the other truth is, let's be honest about it, when you have previously left a manager with one centre-half after the deadline is shut, and when you have tried to give away one of the crown jewels on loan to nobody in the last few years, I think any transfer window can't possibly look that bad, although in reality, maybe it isn't that good.
It's a low bar at Swansea City.
Yeah, because the bar is so low, maybe where I'm just thinking, well, it's not that bad, but maybe someone from another club would have to tell me if this is that bad or not. But yeah, we're starting, aren't we, from a bar where some of our transfer dealings have been so bad that you're just like, you can't believe how bad it's been. So, yeah.
Oh, do you remember that deadline day after we came down? And it was just stop, hit and refresh on Twitter, for God's sake, because every time we do, there was another tweet from the club confirming that a player had left for some pittance fee. And it was the worst deadline day in living memory. It was just horrific, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Just remember that one under Potter and thinking, oh my God.
I remember we brought in Declan John that day. That was the only signing that we made on a deadline day, and we already had a left back. And I remember thinking, like, you're giving away all the centre halves. You only had Van der Horn, and obviously Roden hadn't made his debut at that point. And I know the loan window was still open, but I remember just thinking to myself, like, are we serious here, bringing in a left back that we like? I'm not saying that we don't need one in an ideal world, but like centre half wise, I remember just thinking, we are beyond desperate here. Like, it did genuinely like beg a belief. And obviously we were left with one striker really because Boney was injured for ages, and then obviously we only had McBurney. I was just thinking, like, you just can't be serious that you're going to do this to us. And it did feel like some sort of nightmare, didn't it? I remember, and I think there was a certain panic as well, wasn't there, at that point, that how bad are the finances really? Because it did. The deals we were accepting did feel like a club on the verge of administration.
Well, it felt like that, didn't it? And certainly after the fact, when the dust settled, what was coming out from rumours of people who would know within the club was that it was, well, administration would have been probably the nicest result for us at one point, perhaps straight up liquidation in terms of how bad it was looking at some points. But yeah, thankfully, obviously what happened afterwards with Trevor Birch coming in and getting good money for some of the players after Potter had gone was saved us. But I guess that leaves us in a situation where we are rating transfer windows up because they just can't get as bad as they were back then. But yeah, I think in reality they probably are quite bad still. On that basis, Steve, how would you see the second half of the season panning out?
It's sort of hard to say now. I'm hoping we're going to improve. Remember, before a ball was kicked, I think I predicted 16th. So I think that's still fairly realistic that we're going to end up there. I mean, if Patterson's reintegrated, we're going to look better going forward, aren't we? So, you know, I think we will improve. And obviously we have got some games in hand still. So, you know, in that sense, I think we'll go on a run at some point, and we'll pick some wins up like we did in about October time. And, you know, I don't think we're going to go down. I mean, if we want to be really negative about it, I mean, there's never been a better year to be shit because two teams have had points deductions. Barnsley have been, you know, their points tally is pretty bad, and I mean, to be below Derby in this season takes them doing Peterborough down there, and you know, I mean, well, I'm just looking now, and Cardiff are 1-0 up in injury time at Barnsley, so you know, that sort of shows how bad Barnsley are, doesn't it? they're losing again to a team that are not far off them in the division. Barnsley have got 14 points now from 28 games. I mean, that's literally averaging half a point a game. I mean, that takes some doing, doesn't it? I mean, you've got to be
it's horrendous.
Bad. Yeah, it is terrible. Like, they're at that point now where they probably need more wins than defeats in the remaining games to have a chance of staying up. So,
yeah,
like, it is that bad. And, Cardiff now, with that win the other day, and now looks like they're going to win this. I mean, they're only 3 points behind us, and they've pulled, I think it's 9 clear of the bottom 3. So that shows you've done it. Cardiff with those back-to-back wins, it makes a big difference. Now, if we can go and do that somewhere, we'll jump up a few positions and we'll pull further clear, won't we? So, that's how we've got to look at it. It can turn quickly, and I'm sure it will at some point. But, I can't say I'm overly confident it's going to happen straight away.
This isn't me being optimistic or being cuckoo here, right? But we're at the bottom of that huge cluster of clubs. That's what we're at now. I mean, when you look at, we are 12 points off the bottom 3, despite only being 3 positions off it. But that's the gap. There's the gap. There's a huge divide there between that and, like you say, a couple of wins, and we're looking around mid-table-ish. And then from that position on, you're only 5 or 6 points off 9th or 10th, and then obviously that looks a lot healthier in terms of your league finish. So, it is a massive cluster of teams. There's not a lot separating them throughout the middle part of the division there, even breaching into the 5th or 6th in the league. So, there is that map. But our form has been so bad that we just dropped to the bottom of that entire cluster. And something needs to change. I think from my point of view, I hope to see, as I was talking about earlier, I hope to see those sorts of shoots of, even if we lose in games, I want us to see that I can see the progress and how we are, dominating teams, not just holding the ball all game, but actually how have we managed? I want to feel again, like if we lost the game, I want to feel like how have we managed to lose that? Do you know what I mean? The feeling we had so often under Pato was the feeling that we had managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory because of the way we were playing. And at the moment, I think we are missing something to feel like we are pressing teams, pushing them back and battering the opposition's goal. It's not happening. And Russell Martin, no matter what he says in the press about, being happy with X, Y, and Z, I think he knows that it's not clicking up front. And obviously we still have those defensive frailties. So, yeah, I think it will improve. It certainly hope to improve for the last, what is it now, 19 games of the season we've got. So there's plenty of time for us to see those improvements. And who knows where that leaves us. If we were on a better run of form, I'd say, given the transfer fiasco, I'd be worried about losing Russell Martin in the summer. But I'm not 100% convinced at the moment that he'd have a whole lot of the suitors waiting for him. So maybe we will have a manager to see us into the next season, but we'll see how it goes. Steve, as I say, we will come back after the Stoke game to do another podcast looking ahead to weekend, because it is two games a week, isn't it? Pretty much for a long time. So we're going to have to squeeze them in when we can. But yeah. Apart from that, Steve, I think really we reached the point in the podcast where we can say, let's call it a night, and let's hope that we come back next week with a couple of positive results.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not been the best week or so, is it? I think for performances and stuff like that, we definitely feel like, I'd say that we need some sort of a lift. So, fingers crossed, we'll get that by the time we record another one, because it's not great, is it, talking about defeats and poor performances, conceding sloppy goals and stuff like that. No, nobody really wants to hear that. They want to hear more positive stuff. But, we can only reflect, can't we, what we're seeing. We're not going to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But, yeah, we'd certainly like to talk a bit more positively next time.
Absolutely. And let's hope that we do anyway, because we've got Blackburn and Stoke. And if we do pull back 3 or 4 points on them too, then my God, things will look a lot more positive and be a lot more positive around the club. And the booze at full time of last night's game will be a distant memory, hopefully. So anyway, we hope that that's the case. Anyway, from myself and Steve, thank you very much for listening, and we will speak to you soon. But for us, bye-bye.